All right. It is Monday, July 1st, 2019 at 2:36 p.m. Let's take a look quickly at some headlines. Freak hailstorm dumps up to 6 feet of ice on Guadalajara, Mexico. A bizarre hailstorm left the Mexican city buried in up to 6 feet of ice Sunday in the middle of summer. The unusual weather event in Guadalajara damaged homes and cars, but there were no reports of injuries. Enrique Alfaro, the governor of Jalisco, tweeted about the government's response to the freakish hailstorm, along with photos of ice tall enough to cover vehicles' wheels. He was stunned by what he saw in Guadalajara, Jalisco's capital, and suggested climate change may be the cause of the ice storm. I was in the place to assess the situation and witness scenes I had never seen before. Hail more higher than a meter high, and the wonder in climate change exists, he wrote in Spanish. Alfonso said no one was hurt and vowed to have the streets cleaned up as soon as possible. The state city's protection service says there were possible cases of hypothermia in 3 adults. You see here the cars covered in ice, and then they just carried by the wave of ice. So there was a lot of hail when that happened in that storm. All right, next, 10 killed when small plane crashes after takeoff in Texas. All 10 people on board a small plane were killed in a fiery crash Sunday morning when the aircraft struggled to gain altitude after taking off from a suburban Dallas airport, veered to one side and plunged into a hangar, local authorities and witnesses said. National Transportation Safety Board Vice Chairman Bruce Landsberg said 2 crew members and 8 passengers were killed. Federal officials said 2 crew members and 8 passengers were killed when the twin-engine plane scheduled to fly to St. Petersburg, Florida, crashed at the Addison Municipal Airport at 9:11 a.m. The identities of those killed were not immediately released. We don't know a lot about the people on board at this point, Landsberg said. The twin-engine private plane lost an engine at takeoff, sources told CBS News. The plane bank left immediately after takeoff and went into the hangar. Officials said the Beechcraft BE-350 King Air hit a hangar and then burst into flames, with black smoke billowing from the building as firefighters sprayed it with water. A plane and helicopter in the hangar were damaged, but there were no people in the building. The craft left a gaping hole in the hangar, which sits not so far from a busy commercial strip and densely populated residential neighborhoods in a northern suburb of Dallas. So please pray for those people and their families that passed away. Alright, next. Papayas from Mexico linked to salmonella outbreak in the U.S. Consumers in Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island are being urged not to eat fresh papaya from Mexico. The U.S. Centers of Disease Control has issued a public safety alert after 62 people in 8 states were infected with salmonella after eating the imported fruit. Nearly 40% of them were admitted to local hospitals. Most papaya imported in the U.S. comes from Mexico. The safety officials and regulators are still trying to pinpoint exactly where in Mexico the tainted fruit came from. Federal health officials are warning consumers in 6 states not to eat fresh papaya from Mexico amid an outbreak of salmonella that has sickened more than 60 people and sent nearly 40% of them into local hospitals. Some consumer safety watchdogs say the outbreak high hospitalization rate suggests the fruit should be pulled from the supermarket shelves, and the government should consider banning imports of papayas from Mexico until the source of salmonella outbreak is identified. A food safety alert from the U.S. Center of Disease Control urged consumers in Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island not to eat fruit imported from Mexico due to risk of food poisoning. Alright, guys, so be aware of papayas coming from Mexico. Alright, next, flesh-eating bacteria. Florida woman's death from flesh-eating bacteria shines light on necrotizing fasciitis. Apparently, there has been a family in Florida woman who has died by being infected by flesh-eating bacteria at a beach and sounding the alarm. Lynn Fleming, 77, died late last week after walking along a popular Gulf of Mexico beach near her home. So, it is a rare occurrence, but now some communities in Florida are especially concerned. Even when it's diagnosed, the effects can be deadly. This is not the only report of flesh-eating bacteria. There's also a mom of a girl who's 12 who contracted flesh-eating bacteria, shares a warning. It says here, countless families head to beaches along the East Coast this time of year for the little rest and relaxation, but the mom wants their parents to know that there's a hidden danger in the waters. Kylie Parker, 12, is currently recovering from necrotizing fasciitis, a flesh-eating bacteria that sent her to the intensive care unit after a family vacation. So for those people living in Florida, walking along the beaches, please be careful. Don't have cuts on your legs and get in the water. You never know what you might contract with this probably flesh-eating bacteria or an infection. It says Kylie Parker and her family went on a road trip from Mooresville, Indiana to Destin, Florida earlier this month, where they had a fun and relaxing trip. That all changed during the ride from home to Indiana when the girl complained of excruciating pain in her leg to the point where she couldn't even walk. We made it to Alabama and stopped to eat, and she was in great deal of pain, her mom's told today. I was having to carry her on my back. So that's when Brown decided to call her daughter's pediatrician. She made an appointment for the next morning. By the time the family arrived home, Kylie had a fever, a swollen leg, a red rash, and the rash was spreading. So people going to the Florida coastlines and Florida beaches, please be aware that the possibility of catching flesh-eating bacteria is totally out there. Alright guys, hit like and subscribe for more videos. See you guys next time, and God bless.